Now, I generally consider myself to be a pretty frugal person in life. I don't like spending money where it's not necessary. I try to avoid buying into too much marketing hype and gimmicks, but there are certain areas in life where two phrases always kind of crop up for me, which is you get what you pay for and buy cheap, buy twice. And with these things in mind, I want to go over 5 items that, in particular for strikers, but martial artists in general, you probably shouldn't cheap out on. Now, I want to preface this video by saying none of the items that I'm going to talk about today are sponsored. These are simply brands or products that I truly endorse and use myself, and that they're not the cheapest options out there on the market. You guys go do your own research, try your own stuff. This is purely just opinion and information for you guys to take away and see if it helps you. Item number 1 is going to be your gum shield. Now, you can get really cheap gum shields. They're referred to often as boil and bite, and the cheapest ones you can find, they're like between £1 and £3. And they all serve the same basic function, and they all have the same basic way of setting them up, which is you stick them in boiling water, as the name suggests, you wait a little bit till it goes soft, and then you bite down on it to mold it to your teeth. But they are definitely not all created equal, and I really don't recommend getting the cheapest gum shield that you can get, especially if you are, like I said, striking and getting hit in the face. You want something that's going to offer a higher level of protection. Not to mention just the protection, but also the comfort of the fit, because having a big piece of plastic or rubber in your mouth, that's not pleasant anyway. So at least let's make sure that it's got a good fit, that it's going to stay in place. The ones I recommend, the ones I use have for the longest time have been Opro, and I might not even be saying the brand right, but obviously I'm going to stick everything that we use up here. They've got different levels. I've always gone for the 2 top ones, which is either the gold or the platinum. I haven't seen much difference between those two, and I can't say that I've ever tried any of the lower level ones. Now, I say expensive, they're around 20 to 30 UK pounds, maybe a little bit more in dollars. That's not a lot of money, but obviously if you went on, Amazon and you saw, well, you can get one for £3 or you can get one for 20, it's like 4 times the price. So I can see why people are tempted to just get the cheaper one, but don't. Get the more expensive model. What it has is it's got the same kind of soft inlay, which is what would be on the cheap ones, but that's all the cheap ones are. But then it's got like a harder plastic layer on the outside. So what you end up doing is you mold the inside of the gum shield, and that fits into your teeth. And then it's got this harder outer layer that kind of offers this second layer of protection. Beyond that, I find that whatever material they use or however they've synthesized it, it just molds better. What the real test of a good gum shield is when you put it in up to the top of your teeth and you open your mouth, it doesn't fall out because you've molded it. That's a good sign that you've molded it correctly, but cheap gum shields, they'll fall out anyway. So you don't want that because you're gonna be mouth breathing at some point, and if you get hit while you're mouth breathing, you wanna make sure that the gum shield is doing its job. Item number 2, we're discussing groin guards. Now, gents, I'm talking specifically to you. Ladies, there is groin protection, but every woman I've ever spoke to or trained with has never really used it or felt a need to, but the same would apply. You can get groin guards really cheap. And what a cheap groin guard generally looks like is it's effectively a jock strap. So just a little bit of elastic material and a small little cup that sits in the middle that covers the essential regions. In all fairness to them, they are much better than nothing, and this is the same with all of this stuff. If you can't afford to buy the more expensive stuff, that's absolutely fine. It's better to have this stuff and have it cheap than not have it at all. Similar to what I said about the mouth guards, the gum shields, it's the mold on a cheap groin guard is, they're all generic, they're all one size fits all, but it's never a great mold. And what that means is it's not gonna quite sit the way you want it to sit, and there's a good chance it's going to move around once you're in action. Now, the risk you run, and this is what I've seen happen to people on multiple occasions, is that thing doesn't quite sit where it should in place, doesn't keep everything within the confines, and effectively then operates like a guillotine when you get struck.
Guillotine? Sounds French. I love the French. Did you know that they invented mayonnaise?
Yeah. not nice. Get yourself one that covers more than the essential areas. The ones I've always used and always recommended are the RDX ones. And again, I'm gonna post an image of what I mean up here. What I'm not saying, and this will change if you're doing exclusively boxing, because in boxing, you'll see they use a very large groin guard. It covers a huge amount of area, which I'm all for. But let's say you're kickboxing or doing Muay Thai, it's really not practical in terms of kicking to have such a large groin guard. But I really do recommend having more than just a simple little box to protect a pretty important area. Right, number 3 might surprise some of you that have been with the channel for a long time, because I've actually always been a supporter of buying cheap gloves. And the reason I've been a supporter of it is that most of the time you're gonna buy some gloves, and if you're training regularly, A, they're gonna stink real quick, and B, they're gonna end up falling apart. And I found in my experience that whether I spent £20 or £50 on a pair of gloves, they were all destined for the same fate, which was they're gonna get really smelly, pretty gross, and I'm gonna throw them away and get a new set anyway. Recently, I got gifted a pair of Fairtex. They're all leather, Muay Thai style gloves. And when I got given these gloves that are roughly worth about £100, I realized that I really wanted to look after them. So I created a system or a process, and I did a whole video on this about how to clean your gloves to ensure that I could try my absolute best to keep the smelliness out of them. And up till now, I've had them for maybe close to a year. There is no smell in these gloves. And part of it is definitely down to me taking good care of them. But the other part is also kind of down to the design. These better gloves, they've got a bit more space on the inside because they're expecting you to wrap your hands, so airflow is a bit better. And the natural leather material, if you're giving it a good clean, it actually works so much better in terms of its antimicrobial, you know what I'm trying to say, effects. I've really changed my mind on it. And the other thing is a really good pair of gloves such as these, they don't fall apart. I've been hitting a bag every single week, 5 days a week for a long time, this whole year with these gloves, and they're showing absolutely zero sign of wear and tear. £100 is a lot of money to spend on gloves. I'm not telling you to go out and all buy £100 boxing gloves. What I am saying is spend a little bit more. Don't get the cheapest. Don't get the 20, the 30. Try to get just a little bit above it. Try to get a leather glove, because that leather material, like I said, it helps with the antibacterial benefits of it, but also it's just so much more hard wearing. Generally speaking, it will last you a lot longer. Beyond all of that, it's the ergonomics of it. It's the way it fits on the hand. Generally, like I said, these more expensive gloves, they are expecting you to wrap your hands. I'm really guilty of just sticking gloves on without hand wraps and hurting my wrists or hurting my knuckles because I overdo it without protecting my hands. Cheaper gloves, they're geared towards a market of people that aren't taking stuff too seriously. They're just gonna stick them on, do a little with their PT and slip them off. So they put a lot of extra padding on that inside to try and offer a level of protection. It's not the equivalent of wrapping your hands properly, but it's something. But what that means is if you actually try to wrap your hands and put them in, you'll actually struggle to get your hand in the glove. I just wanted to explain that there is definitely a significant difference between a cheap glove that's kind of marketed at, anyone who's just wanting to hit something, and a proper boxing, Muay Thai, kickboxing style glove that's specifically designed for those that are going to take the sport a bit more seriously. Okay, it wouldn't be a YouTube video without a level of controversy, so let's put that in at number 4 because most of the casuals would have disappeared by now, so it's only the hardcores hanging around, and that is headgear, a head guard. Now the controversy surrounding this is, well, the best bet is not to buy one because they don't offer any real protection against concussion. This is the statement that's out there, and I'm gonna do a whole separate video on this because, quite frankly, I don't agree. And sometimes when I'm seeing this opinion going around on social media, my brain is telling me, or my mind is telling me, you haven't been hit in the head with either.
Do you even lift?
You haven't been hit in the head wearing a head guard, and you haven't been hit in the head without one. Now, I've trained for years and I have sparred both with a head guard regularly and without one. And I can tell you unequivocally, there is a huge difference between how I feel afterwards. And I'm talking pure, how bad is my headache after being hit in the head multiple times, after wearing a head guard and after not. And for me, for my money, a head guard is a worthy investment. The big argument is that it makes the surface area of your head bigger. You got these images of this big, puffy, dipped foam head guard. And again, these are the cheap ones. They do increase the surface area, increase the likeliness of you being hit in the head, and don't offer a huge amount of protection. Now, the one I'm gonna recommend to you, top 10, the Event Guard. I think I'm saying it right. Putting it here. This is a great head guard, mostly again down to ergonomics, is it fits to your head. It doesn't add a whole load of bulk out to the sides. It doesn't make your head feel particularly heavy, and it offers a great level of protection. Now, even if you really do fall in that camp of head guards don't protect you from concussion or head damage, fine, to yourself, go for it. Being cut up, being marked up, getting your ears busted, getting your eye busted, it's not a great look. And if you've got a job other than being hit in the head, then it's probably a good idea that you try to protect yourself against that. And it's worthwhile investing a bit of extra money. The big thing with the top 10 head guard is it's a head guard for life. I've had my one for 10 plus years and there's no real wear and tear to it because it's one molded solid piece. The only thing I've had to change over the years is the chin strap, which you can buy separately, pretty cheap, and it's just because the Velcro wore out over time. A worthy investment and worth hunting down because I do think it makes a real significant difference. Number 5, I cheated a little bit on this one because the video is going to say 5 pieces of gear to not go cheap on. Number 5 isn't gear, but who's going to watch a video on 4 things? You know, it's got to be 5. It's a list. But I will say, I think number 5 is probably the most important out of all of them, and that is your training. Don't cheap out on training. Martial arts is not cheap. You go to a good school, a good martial arts school with a reputable teacher or system or program, it's gonna cost you some money. Now, again, if you can't afford it, that's the issue and you can't help that. And I'm not shaming you or making you feel bad about that. I'm just telling you to kind of reframe the way you think about it in the sense that, let's say you got 2 schools in your area and you've been down to both, you liked both. Don't let the decision factor be which one is cheaper. I'm not saying that you go to the more expensive one because it's the better school. I'm saying go to the better school. Don't put it down to, well, I could go here, but he wants $80, but I'm gonna go to him because he is only asking me for $40. It's not necessarily the same thing. There's loads of schools out there that are the cheaper ones, that are the better ones. So again, I'm not saying that more buys you a better school, but I am saying don't let the money be the decision of where you train. And a good martial arts school should charge a relatively good fee for what they do because becoming a martial arts instructor, a legit one, is a very long process. It takes a long time to get the skills. It takes an even longer time to learn how to transfer that into coaching. And then you want to support that because if we don't support these martial art instructors, they disappear and the schools disappear and the knowledge disappears. Obviously, price is a consideration. Just don't let it be the thing that causes you to not go somewhere. Don't cheap out on your training. Guys, I hope this video has been helpful. As I said, none of this was sponsored today, but just some stuff for you to take away and consider. At the end of the day, it's your money, it's your stuff. Buy what you like, do what you like. I'm not your dad, and I'll see you on the next one.